My ex-husband vanished after our honeymoon, leaving me pregnant and utterly bewildered. 7 years later, he reappeared, contacted me, and revealed the shocking, bizarre truth behind his abandonment, begging for a second chance. This story features Nelson, 38, my ex, Ben, 34, my current partner, and my son, Lucas, 7. I'm Beatrice, 32. It all started 7 years ago when my marriage ended under the most baffling conditions. My husband, Nelson, simply disappeared one day, leaving only a note that declared our marriage over. No explanation, no discussion, nothing at all. He completely vanished from my life when I was 3 months pregnant with our son. Now, he's back, finally explaining why he left. The reason is so incredibly strange. I still struggle to fully comprehend it. Let me take you back to the very beginning. I moved from Colombia to the United States at 22, eager to pursue a master's in engineering. My parents, still in Bogota, tirelessly worked multiple jobs to fund my education, fully supporting my dream of a career in America. After graduating, I secured a great position at a Chicago tech company. In 2016, I met Nelson at a conference. He was a consultant and we instantly connected. Nelson was charming, witty, and seemed genuinely fascinated by my culture. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. Our wedding was small, my parents couldn't get visas, but Nelson's family attended and appeared to approve of me. Our first year of marriage was idyllic. Nelson was attentive, supportive of my career, and we began discussing a family, even buying a house together. Everything felt perfect until early 2018. When we planned our first significant trip, a visit to Colombia, Nelson had never met my parents, and I was eager for him to see my upbringing. We planned a 2-week trip to Bogota and other cities. I couldn't wait to introduce him to my country and extended family. My parents were ecstatic to finally meet their son-in-law, but 3 days before we left, I was struck with severe food poisoning, constantly throwing up, barely able to move. Nelson wanted to cancel and stay with me, but I insisted he go alone. We already paid for everything and my parents were so excited. I even thought it would be a great chance for him to bond with them independently. Nelson was reluctant but agreed to the solo trip. He promised daily video calls and said he'd only stay a week, not 2. I armed him with my parents' address, phone numbers, and a list of sites. My mother was sad I couldn't come but understood. Nelson departed that Tuesday morning. For the first 3 days, he called consistently, sending city photos. He met my parents, calling them lovely. My mom also called, raving about Nelson and how many questions he asked about my childhood. Everything seemed fine. On the 4th day, his calls grew shorter, less frequent. He blamed it on sightseeing fatigue. By the 6th day, he stopped calling entirely. My calls went straight to voicemail. I contacted my parents. They hadn't seen him since his 2nd day there. Nelson returned exactly a week later, as planned. The instant he walked through the door, I felt an undeniable shift. Something was profoundly different. He barely met my gaze when I hugged him. His answers about the trip curt, monosyllabic. Asked why he stopped calling, he merely shrugged, mumbling about phone issues. That night, without a word, he slept on the couch for the next month. He was a ghost in our home, leaving early, returning late. He initiated no conversations and completely recoiled from physical touch. When I tried to address his distance, he'd insist he was fine, swiftly changing the subject. I suspected another woman in Colombia, but it seemed unlikely given his isolation. Perhaps my family had offended him, yet my parents confirmed. Their brief interactions were pleasant. It was during this unsettling period I discovered I was pregnant. When I told Nelson, he simply nodded and walked away, offering no congratulations, no hint of excitement at fatherhood. His reaction solidified it. Our marriage was over, though I couldn't fathom why. One morning in late March, I awoke to an empty house. Nelson was gone. His closet was bare, his car absent from the driveway. On the kitchen counter, a chilling yellow sticky note read, "We are done. I am filing for divorce. Do not contact me." I stood staring, numb, for 20 minutes. His phone was disconnected at his office. A colleague confirmed he resigned the previous week. I drove to his parents' house. His mother answered, her gaze full of disgust. When I explained, she spat that Nelson had told them everything about me, calling me a liar and manipulator and demanding I stop pretending innocence when pressed. She claimed they knew about my secret life in Colombia and that I should be ashamed. Then she slammed the door. Her reaction utterly bewildered me. I had no clue what secret life she meant. Nelson's friends and brother offered no answers, just reiterating that he'd explained everything and I needed to move on. For 2 months, I tirelessly sought answers. A private investigator confirmed Nelson had completely vanished from Chicago. My parents, equally baffled, insisted Nelson had been pleasant during their brief meetings and couldn't fathom his departure. Eventually, I surrendered the search. The divorce papers arrived for months after he left. Exhausted and needing to focus on my impending baby, I signed without protest. Lucas was born in October 2018, and Nelson never once reached out about his son. The post-divorce years were challenging, but I coped. I immersed myself in work and raising Lucas. My parents visited from Colombia twice to meet their grandson, and we video called weekly. Lucas grew up knowing he had a biological father, but understood that man wasn't part of our lives. Then, in 2021, I met Ben at a barbecue through mutual friends. He was also recently divorced with an 8-year-old daughter. We began as friends and our relationship blossomed slowly. Ben was incredibly patient with my trust issues, never pressing me to explain my abrupt divorce. Ben and Lucas clicked instantly. He never sought to replace Lucas's father, but rather became a cherished, positive male figure in his life. Last year, we moved in together, and our lives finally felt stable and peaceful. Then, 3 weeks ago, my phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. "Beatrice, it's Nelson. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to explain why I left. Can we meet somewhere public to talk?" My gut reaction was to delete and block. I showed Ben, who calmly told me the decision was entirely mine. He trusted me. I ignored it for 2 days. Then another text arrived. "I was an idiot and I owe you an explanation after all these years. I discovered the truth about what happened in Colombia. Please give me one chance to tell you what really went on." The word Colombia instantly hooked me. I still had absolutely no idea what had transpired on that trip to shatter our lives. After discussing it with Ben, I decided to meet Nelson just once for closure. I agreed to a downtown coffee shop that Saturday afternoon. Informing Ben of my whereabouts and expected return, he offered to come, but I felt I needed to face this alone. Nelson was already there, looking thinner and older. He stood, awkwardly, offering coffee, which I declined, taking the seat opposite him. He began with a hesitant apology for his departure, admitting there was no excuse for abandoning me while pregnant. Regretting his silence, I accepted his apology for his cowardly behavior, but clarified it wasn't why I was there. I demanded to know why he'd ended our marriage. Taking a deep breath, Nelson launched into a story about Colombia, something I knew nothing about. He claimed that on his 3rd day in Bogotá, a woman approached him at his hotel, identifying herself as my mother's sister, needing to speak privately about me. Nelson was baffled. I had no aunt in Bogotá. This woman, Elena, then spun a tale. I'd supposedly lied about my past, was already married to a Colombian man with a 4-year-old daughter, and had abandoned them to start fresh in America. Nelson initially disbelieved her, but Elena possessed unnervingly specific details about my childhood that I'd shared with him. The scar from my bike fall at 8, my first pet rabbit, and my grief when it died, even my college boyfriend's name and relationship length. Elena warned Nelson that confronting me would lead to denials and even violence, claiming I had a temper and had threatened family before. She offered proof, a meeting with my Colombian husband and daughter. The next day, Elena drove Nelson to a different part of the city. There, he met Miguel, who claimed to be my husband, and a little girl, supposedly my daughter. Miguel, speaking decent English, recounted my abandonment 3 years prior. Nelson noted the child's slight resemblance to me, and that she called Miguel Papa. Elena even had phone photos of me with Miguel and the child at various family events. Nelson said the evidence seemed overwhelmingly convincing, particularly with Elena's intimate knowledge of my life. Elena further warned that I was likely planning to bring my Colombian family to America once my citizenship through our marriage was secured, using him as a mere stepping stone before divorcing him to reunite with my real family. Nelson recounted spending his final 2 days in Colombia in a daze, trying to process this revelation. He couldn't fathom how I'd kept such a massive secret for over a year of marriage. Returning to Chicago, he found he couldn't look at me without seeing my perceived betrayal. He waited for my confession, but I never mentioned anything unusual when I told him I was pregnant. He assumed it was just another part of my scheme to solidify my presence in America before revealing the truth. Nelson explained he ultimately left because he couldn't bear living with someone he believed had lied to him from the start. Too humiliated to confront me, he simply vanished. I sat there, utterly dumbfounded, listening to the most preposterous story I'd ever heard. I told Nelson, flat out, that I had never been married before him, had no children before Lucas, and absolutely no aunt named Elena in Bogotá. My only relatives there were my parents and one cousin across town. Nelson nodded, saying he'd recently realized as much. He explained Elena had contacted him again 2 months prior, seeking his help to get her daughter a visa to America. When he refused, Elena grew angry, threatening to expose other secrets about him. Elena's desperation sparked Nelson's suspicion. He began probing her with detailed questions about me and my family. Her answers soon contradicted her original story, pressed harder. Elena finally confessed she'd fabricated the entire tale of my secret marriage and child. Nelson said Elena admitted she was a distant relative, consumed by jealousy over my success in America. Hearing of my marriage to an American, she resolved to sabotage it. She'd enlisted her neighbor Miguel and his daughter to play the roles of my fake family. Elena gleaned personal details about me from my social media and conversations with my parents during Nelson's visit, using this information to make her lies believable. Nelson said Elena claimed she never intended for the deception to go so far. She thought he'd merely confront me about the fake family, leading to an argument and temporary marital problems. She never anticipated he would leave me completely. Nelson concluded, expressing regret for believing Elena's fabrications, then asked if reconciliation was possible. He claimed he'd never stopped thinking about me and Lucas. Longing to be a proper father, I looked him square in the eye and stated there was absolutely no chance. I explained that even if his convoluted excuse were true, he chose to believe a stranger's word over his wife's character. He chose to abandon his pregnant wife, rather than have an honest conversation. He allowed his parents to cruelly insult me and made zero effort to contact his son for 7 years. I told Nelson I was now in a committed relationship with a wonderful man who treated Lucas and me with respect. Lucas was thriving, and his life didn't need the chaos Nelson's presence would bring. Nelson began to cry, pleading to at least meet Lucas once. I coldly told him that ship had sailed the moment he chose to believe lies about me instead of trusting the woman he married. I stood up and walked out. Back home, I recounted everything to Ben. He simply held me as I wept tears of frustration and anger. Ben assured me he was proud of how I handled it and would support any decision I made. Regarding Nelson's request to meet Lucas now, Nelson won't stop texting, constantly asking for another chance, claiming he wants to make up for lost time with Lucas and has learned from his mistakes. He even sends photos of gifts he's bought for Lucas, always asking when he can deliver them. I haven't responded. I blocked his number yesterday, but he just started texting from a new one. I'm considering changing my phone number entirely, but then I worry he might escalate further, showing up at my home or Lucas's school. I know some people might argue I should give Nelson a chance to connect with Lucas, but I simply cannot overlook what he did to us. He deliberately chose to believe the worst about me, without any actual proof, and abandoned his family based on those lies. I don't believe someone like that deserves access to my son. What would you do in my situation? Am I being too harsh by refusing to let Nelson meet Lucas? Update 1. Thank you all for your comments. They truly helped me process the situation. I received many private messages asking for updates, so here's what's transpired. Nelson did not give up after I blocked his initial number. Over the past 2 weeks, he texted from at least 4 different numbers. When I blocked those, he resorted to emailing from various addresses. The message was always the same: apologies, explanations, and pleased to meet Lucas. Last Wednesday, things escalated. Nelson showed up at my workplace as I walked to my car. He was waiting by the parking garage entrance. He approached, asking for 5 minutes to talk. I told him there was nothing more to discuss, and he needed to stop contacting me. He claimed to understand my anger but insisted Lucas deserved to know his biological father, mentioning he'd been seeing a counselor for a year. As I walked towards my car, he followed, relentlessly talking, saying the guilt of abandoning Lucas had burdened him for years, and meeting his son would bring him peace. I turned, flatly stating his peace was not my responsibility. Then he dropped a bombshell that made me pause. He claimed Elena, that woman from Colombia, had recently contacted him with new information about why she targeted our marriage. He said Elena admitted her actions had a deeper motive beyond mere jealousy. I stopped. What did Elena tell you? I asked. He revealed Elena confessed she'd been paid by someone to destroy our marriage. When I pressed for the pair's identity, Nelson said it was someone from my own family, wanting to prevent me from staying in America permanently. This hit me like a physical blow. I demanded more details, but he countered he'd only share everything if I agreed to let him meet Lucas. I called it what it was: emotional blackmail, and walked away. The entire drive home, I was consumed by Nelson's claim. The idea that a family member could orchestrate my marriage's downfall seemed impossible. Yet the question gnawed at me. I told Ben everything when I got home. He was furious. Nelson ambushed me and wanted to call the police. I urged him to wait. I needed to uncover what Elena told Nelson about my family. That evening, I called my parents in Colombia, pressing for details about Nelson's visit 7 years ago, who he met, what they discussed. My mother recalled Nelson visiting only twice during his week. The first was a dinner the day after he arrived, talking about me and our marriage. The second, a brief goodbye 3 days later. During that first dinner, my mother noted Nelson asked many questions about our family, my childhood, past relationships, and any U.S. relatives. My father casually mentioned my uncle Roberto, in Miami, who was trying to get visas for his children. Asked if Nelson seemed troubled, my mom said he was polite but distant during the goodbye, attributing it to travel fatigue. Then, my mother revealed something new. Uncle Roberto had called them the day after Nelson's first visit, peppering them with detailed questions about my American husband, his job, family background, the seriousness of our relationship. My mother found Roberto's curiosity strange. He'd never shown such interest in my personal life before, and when asked, he merely claimed he was looking out for his niece's welfare after speaking with my parents. I called Uncle Roberto in Miami. We hadn't spoken in over 2 years, and he sounded surprised. Asked if he remembered inquiring about my ex-husband 7 years ago. He vaguely recalled it, again claiming to be a protective uncle. When I pressed for details, he grew defensive, asking why I was dredging up ancient history, deciding to be direct. I asked if he knew anyone named Elena in Bogota. A long silence followed before he claimed Elena was a woman who occasionally helped him with immigration paperwork, and he hadn't spoken to her in years. Roberto's tone instantly raised my suspicions. I asked him point blank if he'd ever paid Elena to interfere in my marriage. He erupted, accusing me of crazy accusations against family and being paranoid since moving to America, then hung up. Roberto's reaction solidified my belief. Nelson might be telling the truth about Elena being paid by someone in my family. I spent days strategizing how to get more information without alerting Roberto. I remembered my cousin Carmen in Bogota worked for an immigration lawyer. I called Carmen, asking if she knew an Elena involved with U.S. visa applications. Carmen confirmed she'd heard of Elena through work connections, describing her as someone with a reputation for questionable methods to bring Colombians to America, even creating fake relationships or marriages. When I asked if Elena ever worked with my uncle Roberto, Carmen hesitated, then admitted seeing them together at a coffee shop about 2 years ago, which she found odd since Roberto usually handled his own paperwork. This confirmed my suspicions. Roberto and Elena were far more connected than he'd admitted. I knew I had to confront Nelson again for the complete story. I called Nelson from a blocked number and agreed to meet again, choosing a public library for privacy. I told Ben where I was going and asked him to call if he hadn't heard from me in an hour. Nelson arrived looking hopeful. I immediately said, "The record straight. I wasn't there to discuss reconciliation or Lucas, only to hear everything Elena had told him about who paid her to destroy our marriage." He seemed disappointed but agreed. Elena, he explained, had contacted him 6 weeks prior, desperate for money when he refused. She offered the full truth about why she was hired to break up our marriage. According to Nelson, Uncle Roberto had reached out to Elena in early 2018 through immigration connections. Roberto told Elena his niece's marriage to an American was hindering his own children's visa applications. Elena said Roberto believed I was to focus on my life in America, to help my extended family with immigration. He thought if my marriage failed, I returned to Colombia, or at least be more willing to sponsor other family members for visas. Roberto paid Elena $5,000 to convince Nelson I was already married in Colombia, supplying her with personal information from my social media and his chats with my parents. Elena confessed Roberto never intended to completely destroy our marriage. He anticipated Nelson would confront me, we'd have relationship issues, I'd eventually divorce him, and then be available to help Roberto's children immigrate. Elena claimed she felt guilty about the extent of the deception, especially after learning I was pregnant when Nelson left. She said she tried to contact Nelson over the years to confess, but Roberto threatened to expose her illegal activities to immigration authorities if she revealed his involvement. Nelson said Elena only confessed recently because Roberto had stopped paying her the promised monthly silence fee. She was struggling financially and hoped Nelson would pay for the truth. I sat there, trying to process this information and contain my seething anger. My uncle had deliberately destroyed my marriage and caused Nelson to abandon his pregnant wife, all because he wanted me to help his children get visas. The sheer selfishness and cruelty of his actions were beyond comprehension. I asked Nelson why he was telling me this now, instead of going to the police about Roberto's fraud. He replied he didn't care about justice for Roberto. He only wanted to use his information to convince me he was a victim too, deserving a second chance with me and Lucas. I told Nelson that learning about Roberto's involvement didn't change how I felt about ***. Action 7 years ago. Nelson still chose to believe a stranger's lies over his own wife. He still abandoned his pregnant wife without explanation. Roberto's manipulation didn't excuse Nelson's choices. Nelson argued Roberto's deception proved he wasn't entirely at fault. I countered that being manipulated didn't make him a victim. It made him someone with poor judgment, easily swayed by strangers. I left the library and drove straight to Ben's office. I needed to confide in someone I trusted before I did something regrettable. Ben listened, then held me as I cried from rage and profound betrayal. He suggested calling the police to report Roberto for fraud, though I was unsure of the exact crimes. Ben also voiced his disgust at Nelson's manipulative attempt to leverage this information for access to Lucas. That night, I called my parents, revealing Roberto's role in destroying my marriage. My mother wept, apologizing for not seeing what her brother had done. My father remained silent for a long moment, then declared he wanted to confront Roberto personally. I asked them to wait, needing time to process everything and decide my next steps. Since then, I've been researching legal options for Roberto's fraud and contemplating whether to gather more evidence before acting. Nelson continues to text, asking to meet Lucas. I haven't responded, still reeling from all I've learned. A part of me feels sorry for Nelson, knowing he was manipulated, but I still cannot forgive how he handled the situation. I constantly think how different my life would have been if Nelson had just talked to me. 7 years ago, Lucas would have grown up with his biological father. I might never have met Ben. Roberto's greed and Nelson's cowardice changed the entire trajectory of our lives. I'm unsure what to do next. Should I pursue justice against Roberto? Should I give Nelson a chance to meet Lucas, knowing he was manipulated? Or should I simply try to move on and forget both of them? Any advice would be deeply appreciated. Update 2. A lot has transpired in the past month and a half, and I want to share the difficult, yet necessary decisions I've made. Learning of Uncle Roberto's deep involvement in destroying my marriage, I knew I had to act. He couldn't get away with what he did to me, Nelson, and Lucas. He needed to face consequences. My first step was gathering solid evidence. I directly contacted Elena using the information Nelson provided. She was initially hesitant but agreed to a video call after I assured her I wasn't trying to get her in trouble. From Colombia, she confirmed everything Nelson had said about Roberto paying her to ruin my marriage. Elena supplied copies of text messages between her and Roberto from 2018, plus photos of money transfers to her bank. She revealed even more about Roberto's scheme than Nelson knew. He'd been planning this for months before Nelson's trip, monitoring my social media and questioning my parents during their calls. Roberto specifically chose Nelson's solo trip to Colombia as the perfect opportunity, knowing he'd be vulnerable and isolated in a foreign country where he wasn't fluent in the language. Elena revealed Roberto originally wanted her to claim I was involved in drug trafficking, but she refused, deeming it too dangerous. They settled on the fake family story to damage my marriage, without risking criminal charges against me. Following my conversation with Elena, I consulted a Chicago attorney. He confirmed Roberto's actions likely constituted wire fraud and conspiracy, but prosecuting him would be complex due to the cross-border nature of the crimes. The attorney's best advice: report Roberto to immigration authorities in both the U.S. and Colombia. Roberto's manipulation of visa applications could lead to him being banned from the U.S. and jeopardize his children's pending applications. I decided to file reports with both agencies, providing all of Elena's evidence and detailed statements on how Roberto's fraud impacted my family. The attorney warned these investigations could take months or years, but assured me Roberto would face serious repercussions, alongside Roberto's legal issues. I also had to address Nelson's relentless requests to meet Lucas. We discussed it with Ben many times. He assured me he'd support any decision, but urged me to consider Lucas's long-term best interests. Ben pointed out Lucas was growing older and would soon ask more about his biological father. He suggested I talk to Lucas before making any decisions, believing Lucas deserved to know his father wanted to meet him, even if I ultimately refused contact. One evening after dinner, I spoke to Lucas about his biological father. I explained his father had lived far away but recently reached out, wanting to meet him. Lucas was quiet, then asked why his father hadn't wanted to meet him before. I explained his father made mistakes when Lucas was a baby and lived in a different state. Lucas then asked if his father was a bad person. I replied he'd made poor decisions, but wasn't necessarily bad. He then asked if meeting his biological father meant Ben wouldn't be his stepfather anymore. I reassured Lucas that Ben would always be part of our family, no matter what. Lucas expressed curiosity but firmly stated he didn't want anything to change in our current family dynamic after this. I decided to grant Nelson *1 supervised opportunity to meet Lucas. I contacted Nelson, stating he could meet Lucas for 2 hours at a public park, with Ben and me present. I made it unequivocally clear this was not a guarantee of ongoing contact. Any future relationship depended solely on this initial meeting. Nelson agreed, seemingly grateful. We met the following Saturday. The meeting was awkward from the start. Nelson arrived with a large bag of expensive toys, immediately making the interaction feel forced. Lucas was polite, but visibly uncomfortable with the stranger claiming to be his father. Nelson tried to hard bombarding Lucas with questions about school, sports, and hobbies. Lucas answered politely, constantly glancing at Ben and me for reassurance. When Nelson suggested playing on the playground, Lucas preferred to stay near us. After an hour, it was clear Lucas wasn't enjoying it. Nelson grew frustrated, remarking that Lucas seemed shy and needed to open up more to his real father. The final straw came when Nelson told Lucas he'd missed him every day for 7 years, and hoped they could spend more time together. Soon, Lucas looked confused, asking why Nelson had missed him if he chose not to visit before. Nelson looked to me, expecting me to explain their separation. When I refused to discuss our divorce details in front of Lucas, Nelson became visibly agitated. He insisted Lucas deserved to know the truth about his father's absence. I told Nelson our time was up and began gathering our things. He asked when he could see Lucas again. I said I needed time to consider if further meetings would benefit Lucas. Nelson grew angry, claiming his rights as Lucas's biological father, insisting he'd been patient and cooperative, now expecting more access. When Ben stepped forward, telling Nelson to lower his voice, Nelson accused Ben of trying to replace him. Lucas, seeing the adults argue, became distressed and asked to go home. I took Lucas's hand and walked toward our car, Nelson following, loudly ranting about his parental rights and unfair treatment. Ben stayed between Nelson and Lucas until we drove away. The entire experience was traumatic for Lucas, who spent the car ride asking why his biological father had gotten so angry. At home, Lucas firmly stated he never wanted to see his biological father again. He found him uncomfortable and mean. He asked if Nelson would try to take him away, and I assured him that would never happen. I realized Nelson had demonstrated precisely why he shouldn't have access to Lucas. His disregard for boundaries, his sense of entitlement, and his willingness to create conflict in front of a child proved he wasn't ready to be a responsible parent. The next day, I sent Nelson a text, no further contact between him and Lucas. I explained his park behavior was inappropriate, and Lucas himself had asked not to see him. Nelson responded with angry messages, accusing me of poisoning Lucas against him and threatening legal action for parental rights. He claimed I orchestrated the meeting to fail, never intending to give him a real chance. I blocked all his numbers and emails. I also contacted my attorney regarding potential custody or visitation action. My attorney stated Nelson would struggle to establish parental rights after 7 years of voluntary absence, especially without paying child support or attempting contact. She advised documenting all Nelson's threatening communications for a potential restraining order. Since blocking him, I haven't heard directly from Nelson. However, he contacted my parents in Colombia, asking them to convince me to let him see Lucas. My parents firmly told Nelson they supported my decision and wouldn't interfere. Lucas hasn't asked about his biological father since the park meeting. Seemingly relieved the stressful situation is over, Ben has been incredibly supportive, ensuring Lucas understands nothing about our family dynamic will change. As for Roberto, the immigration investigations are ongoing. I haven't spoken to him since our phone call 2 months ago. My parents informed me his children's visa applications are on hold pending review of the allegations. My mother mentioned Roberto is calling other family members, trying to persuade them to convince me to drop the reports, claiming I'm overreacting to a simple misunderstanding and his actions hadn't really hurt anyone. I have zero intention of dropping the reports. What he did was calculated and cruel, and he deserves consequences. His continued minimization of responsibility shows he's learned nothing. Reflecting on the past few months, I feel confident I made the right decisions regarding both Nelson and Roberto. Nelson had his chance to be a positive presence in Lucas's life and failed dramatically. Roberto's scheme shattered my first marriage, causing years of pain for me and Lucas, and he must be held accountable. I'm incredibly grateful for Ben's unwavering support. He never guilt-tripped me about giving Nelson a chance, nor did he try to sway my decisions about Roberto's fraud. Ben's steady presence has been our anchor. Our family is stronger now than before this drama. Lucas knows he can trust Ben and me to protect him from manipulators. I've learned to be more discerning about who I allow into our lives and more willing to cut ties with those who prove untrustworthy. I truly hope this is the end of the situations with both Nelson and Roberto. I want to focus on building a positive future with Ben and Lucas, free from the chaos and pain of people from my past. Update 3. This will be my final update regarding my ex-husband Nelson and my uncle Roberto, as I'm ready to close this chapter completely. Over the past 3 months, several significant developments have occurred. Roberto's immigration investigations progressed faster than anticipated. Last month, an immigration officer called to inform me Roberto has been permanently banned from entering the United States. His children's visa applications were also denied, directly because of their father's fraudulent activities. The officer emphasized the gravity of Roberto's case, particularly his deliberate interference with a legitimate marriage between a U.S. citizen and a legal immigrant. Authorities also uncovered Roberto's involvement in other questionable immigration schemes over the years, leading to a more severe punishment. A few days after Roberto received his ban, my mother called reporting he was distraught, crying, and begging family members in Colombia to persuade me to somehow reverse the immigration decision. He claimed losing the chance to bring his children to America was destroying his family. My mother, however, firmly told Roberto he brought this punishment entirely upon himself through his selfish and cruel actions. She recounted Roberto trying to argue he never intended for Nelson to completely abandon me. But my mother countered that his intentions were irrelevant given the actual devastating consequences of his scheme. I felt absolutely no sympathy for Roberto. He meticulously calculated every step to destroy my marriage for his personal gain. The fact that his scheme backfired, preventing his own children from getting visas, felt like a fitting, appropriate justice. My father directly confronted Roberto after learning about the ban. He told Roberto he was no longer welcome at family gatherings, and that no one in our immediate family would assist him with any future immigration attempts. My father stated Roberto deserved everything that happened to him and more. Weeks later, Roberto's wife called my mother, desperate, asking if the family could help their children get visas through a different process. My mother explained that Roberto's immigration fraud had permanently shattered his children's chances of legally coming to America. Roberto's wife broke down, saying Roberto had ruined their family's future for nothing. I haven't spoken to Roberto directly since our phone call 6 months ago, and I have no intention of ever communicating with him again. As far as I'm concerned, Roberto is no longer part of my family. His willingness to destroy my marriage and abandon his pregnant niece for money revealed his true character. The situation with Nelson has also reached a final conclusion. About 6 weeks ago, Nelson hired a lawyer and filed a petition in family court, requesting visitation rights with Lucas. His attorney argued Nelson was deceived by Roberto and shouldn't be penalized as a victim of fraud. My attorney responded with detailed documentation: Nelson's 7-year absence from Lucas's life, his complete failure to pay child support, and his inappropriate behavior during our supervised park meeting. We also provided evidence that Nelson had voluntarily signed away his parental rights when he agreed to the divorce without requesting custody or visitation. The family court judge reviewed all the evidence and interviewed Lucas privately about his feelings regarding contact with his biological father. Lucas told the judge he didn't want to see Nelson again, and that Nelson had made him uncomfortable during their only meeting. The judge ultimately denied Nelson's petition for visitation rights. The ruling explicitly stated Nelson had voluntarily abandoned his parental responsibilities for 7 years, and forcing contact between Nelson and Lucas would not be in the child's best interests. The judge further noted Lucas's clear preference against contact. Nelson's attorney attempted to argue for another chance, but the judge firmly stated Nelson had already been given that opportunity at the park and failed to demonstrate appropriate parenting behavior. After losing his court case, Nelson sent one final email via his attorney. The message confirmed he accepted the court's decision and would pursue no further legal action. Regarding Lucas, Nelson expressed a hope that someday, Lucas might grow curious enough about his biological father to initiate contact voluntarily. He also apologized again for believing Roberto's lies about me and for abandoning our family 7 years ago, adding he understood why I couldn't forgive him and respected my decision to protect Lucas from further contact. I felt a profound sense of relief receiving Nelson's final message. The legal battle was over, and Nelson had accepted his permanent exclusion from Lucas's life. I had worried he might continue fighting for years, which would have been incredibly stressful and costly. Lucas knows his biological father tried to get court-ordered visits, but the judge ruled he didn't have to see him. Lucas seemed pleased and relieved he wouldn't have to worry about seeing Nelson again. Ben has been truly incredible throughout this entire legal process. He attended every court hearing with me, and helped Lucas understand what was happening, without ever making him scared or guilty. Ben even offered to formally adopt Lucas to provide additional legal protection against future contact from Nelson. I've decided to pursue Ben's adoption of Lucas next year, once the waiting period for Nelson's abandoned parental rights is complete. Lucas is absolutely thrilled at the idea of Ben becoming his legal father and changing his last name to match Ben's. He wants to make it official. Ben is his real dad. Looking back on everything that's unfolded this past year, I'm grateful Nelson's return ultimately led to positive outcomes. Uncovering Roberto's fraud allowed me to seek justice and ensure he could never manipulate our family again. Nelson's failed attempt to reconnect with Lucas definitively proved that cutting him out of our lives was the right decision. I also learned crucial lessons about trusting my instincts and fiercely protecting my family from chaos and drama. I now realize I don't owe second chances to those who have proven untrustworthy, regardless of their claims of change or remorse. Ben and Lucas are my true family now. We've built a stable, loving home founded on mutual respect and genuine care. We simply don't need people from my past who bring only pain and complications. I won't be posting any more updates about this situation, as I consider it entirely resolved. Nelson and Roberto are both permanently out of our lives, and Lucas will grow up knowing he is wanted, loved, and protected by parents who prioritize his well-being above all else. For anyone facing similar situations with manipulative family members or absent parents attempting to return, I urge you to trust your instincts about what's best for your children. Do not let guilt or family pressure coerce you into giving access to people who have already proven they cannot be trusted. Sometimes, the kindest act for your children is to keep toxic individuals away, even if they share DNA. Lucas deserves a drama-free environment, surrounded by people who have earned the right to be called family. Thank you to everyone who commented and offered support during this difficult time. Your responses fortified my confidence in the decisions I made to protect my son and seek justice against those who wronged our family. Now, let's move on to the next story. My dad chose my cruel stepmom over me for years. So when I refused to invite her to my wedding, he tried to utterly destroy my reputation. I'm Lana, 28, and I'm marrying my fiancé, Alex, 30, next spring. My life has been a genuine roller coaster, and I need to share my story and ask for advice about this upcoming wedding. My childhood was idyllic until I was 10. Mom and Dad were happily married, and I was their only child. Our suburban home was cozy, my weekends a blur of park visits, baking with Mom, and watching Dad with his model trains in the basement. Mom, a kindergarten teacher, and Dad, an accountant, showered me with affection. I felt utterly loved and secure. Then, everything shattered. My mom was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer. I was only 9, barely grasping what was happening. Just knowing Mom was gravely ill and constantly in the hospital. Dad tried his best to maintain normalcy, but the worry in his eyes was palpable. Mom fought valiantly for a year, but the cancer was relentless. She passed away just after my 10th birthday. I remember it vividly. Dad, eyes red and swollen, picking me up from school, telling me Mom had gone to heaven. The following months blurred into a haze of grief and confusion. Dad spiraled. Struggling to cope, he began drinking heavily and grew distant. I frequently ate microwave dinners alone, while he sat secluded in his study, whiskey in hand. Our once vibrant home fell silent, somber, when I was 12. Dad announced he'd met someone new, Vivian, 50, a divorced real estate agent with 2 adult children, Zach, 32, and Mia, 26. Dad claimed Vivian made him happy again, urging me to be excited about a new mom and siblings. Initially, I tried. I deeply missed a mother figure, secretly hoping Vivian would fill that void. But from our first meeting, something felt wrong. She was perfectly polite with Dad present, yet alone. Her cold, calculating stares made me deeply uneasy. Dad and Vivian married when I was 13. They decided on a fresh start in a new house. I had to abandon the only home I'd ever known, a sanctuary brimming with Mom's memories. It felt like losing her all over again from day one. Vivian's blatant favoritism towards her own children was undeniable. Zach and Mia claimed the largest bedrooms in our new house, while I was relegated to a cramped space next to the laundry room. Vivian meticulously decorated their spaces, buying new furniture and letting them choose paint colors. My room remained dark, holding only my old bed and dresser. Family activities quickly became a source of anxiety. Vivian planned elaborate trips, amusement parks, beach vacations, ski holidays, but I was consistently left behind with my grandparents or Aunt Sarah. The first time I was 14, Mia was 12, and I overheard Vivian telling Dad I was too young for their planned trip. It made no sense, but Dad never questioned it. Over time, the exclusion grew more overt. Vivian would discuss vacation plans openly, right in front of me, no longer even feigning my inclusion. When I'd ask Dad why I couldn't join, he'd offer weak excuses, not enough money for everyone, or you'd be bored with adult activities, yet I'd later see photos of Zach and Mia joyfully at water parks or ski resorts. Birthdays and holidays were particularly painful. Zach and Mia received lavish gifts, the latest gaming consoles, designer clothes, while I got nothing, or meager, impersonal items like generic gift cards. One Christmas, I received a pack of socks while Mia unwrapped a brand new iPhone. When I was 15, I overheard Vivian telling Dad that buying me presents was a waste of money since I wasn't really part of the family. Dad feebly protested, but ultimately, he did nothing. School became another arena for conflict. Vivian refused to buy me new supplies or clothes, claiming I needed to learn the value of money. From age 14, I babysat and did odd jobs just to afford basic necessities. Meanwhile, Mia enjoyed a new wardrobe every season and the latest gadgets. Zach, already in college, had a car bought for him and his tuition fully covered. But the emotional abuse was the worst. Vivian seized every opportunity to belittle me. She critiqued my appearance with cutting remarks like, "No wonder you don't have a boyfriend. Who'd want to date such a plain Jane?" Or, "You should really try to lose some weight, honey. Nobody likes a chubby girl." She constantly unfavorably compared me to Mia, who was naturally slim and outgoing. Vivian also delivered snide comments about my intelligence. If I brought home a B, she'd declare, "Well, I guess you're just not as smart as your mother." What a shame. She told me my mom would be disappointed in me, that I was a burden. These words cut deeply, especially with so few memories of my mom to counteract them. Zach and Mia, taking their cue from Vivian, often joined the torment. They'd mock me at dinner, joking about my clothes or lack of friends. Mia would sometimes borrow my belongings without asking, returning them damaged if at all. Once, she took a cherished necklace that belonged to my mom and lost it. When I became upset, Vivian instantly accused me of being materialistic and selfish. I tried to confide in Dad about the constant mistreatment, but he always brushed off my concerns, saying things like, "Vivian's just trying her best," or "You need to try harder to fit in." It was as if he deliberately wouldn't or couldn't see what was happening. The breaking point arrived when I was 17. I treasured a small box of mementos from my mom, photos, a few letters she'd written, and some jewelry she'd left for me. I kept it hidden in my closet, only pulling it out when I desperately needed to feel her presence. One day, I came home from school to find my room ransacked. The box lay open on my bed, its contents utterly destroyed. The photos were ripped, the letters shredded, the jewelry gone. I was devastated. Consumed by fury, I confronted Vivian. She simply smirked. "Oops. I must have accidentally thrown those old things away while cleaning. You really should keep your room tidier, Lena." I completely lost it. I screamed at her, calling her a cruel, heartless witch, accusing her of deliberately destroying my last tangible connection to my mom. Dad walked in during our heated argument. Instead of defending me or even attempting to understand, he immediately grounded me for disrespecting my stepmother. He didn't ask to see the destroyed mementos or even consider Vivian might be lying. That night, I packed my bags and fled. I couldn't endure another minute in that house. I went straight to Aunt Sarah's, Mom's younger sister, with whom I'd always been close. When I showed up on her doorstep in tears, recounting everything, she was horrified. She immediately welcomed me, helping me finish my final year of high school. For years, I cut all ties with Dad and Vivian's family. I worked tirelessly, funding my college education with scholarships and part-time jobs, meticulously building a new life. Aunt Sarah was my unwavering anchor, supporting me through every hardship and celebrating every success. It wasn't until I was 24 that Dad finally reached out. He expressed a desire to reconnect, apologizing for his absence. Initially, I ignored him. My career was flourishing. I had a supportive friend group, and I'd started dating Alex. I felt no need for Dad in my life. But after discussing it with Aunt Sarah and Alex, I reluctantly agreed to meet him for coffee. He wept upon seeing me, pouring out apologies, saying how much he'd miss me. He admitted his profound failure as a father and his desire to make amends. I remained wary, but I gave him a chance, making it clear any relationship would have to be earned. Over the next 4 years, we slowly rebuilt. It began with occasional phone calls, evolving into monthly dinners. Last year, he attended my college graduation, a true turning point. For the first time in years, I felt like I truly had a dad again. Now, with my wedding to Alex fast approaching, I face an agonizing decision. I desperately want Dad there, but absolutely refuse to invite Vivian, Zach, or Mia. They've never apologized, never shown an ounce of remorse for the years of torment. The mere thought of their presence at my wedding makes me sick. I spoke to Dad explaining I wanted him as a guest. But not them initially, he seemed to understand. Then, the pressure began. He insisted they were his family too and excluding them would be unfair. When I stood firm, he delivered an ultimatum: if they weren't invited, he wouldn't come. I was profoundly hurt and enraged. I told him, if you choose them over me again, then don't bother coming, our relationship will be over. He tried to argue, but I cut him off, stating I wouldn't speak to him again unless he respected my wishes. Now, my phone is bombarded with messages from Dad's side of the family, urging me to be the bigger person and keep the peace. But I refuse. This is my wedding day, and I won't let it be tainted by people who made my life a living hell for years. Alex and his family completely support me, as does Aunt Sarah, who reminds me I have every right to invite only those who genuinely care. Yet, I can't shake this conflicted feeling. Am I wrong for excluding Vivian and her kids? Should I concede for peace, or firmly stand my ground? First update. It's been a tumultuous week since my last post, and things have spiraled far beyond what I ever imagined. I'm still reeling, but here's what's transpired. The day after I posted, I woke to hundreds of phone notifications. Somehow, Vivian discovered my Reddit post about the wedding. She'd shared it on her social media, craftily twisting the narrative to portray herself as a victim of an ungrateful stepdaughter. Her post exploded in our local community. Suddenly, I was barraged with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, all classmates, former neighbors, even some of Dad's colleagues. Most were venomous, labeling me selfish and cruel for excluding my family from the wedding. The most agonizing part was Vivian's blatant lies. She claimed she'd always been a loving mother, but I rejected her from day one. She asserted she'd spent years attempting to include me in family activities, only for me to consistently refuse. According to her, I was a troubled child, lashing out and fabricating stories for attention. Vivian painted herself as a long-suffering stepmother who tried everything to bond with me. She spoke of supposedly staying up late helping me with homework, which never happened. She mentioned trying to take me shopping for mother-daughter bonding time, also utterly false. She even claimed she always made sure to include me in family photos, a ridiculous assertion contradicted by years of actual photos. She went as far as to say she tried to help me grieve my mom's death, suggesting therapy I'd refused. In reality, any mention of my mom was met with disdain or dismissal in the house. In the worst betrayal, Dad was backing her. He posted a lengthy message about his heartbreak that his daughter was tearing the family apart. He painted himself as a devoted father who always put his children first, conveniently erasing all the years he ignored my pain. Dad's post claimed he'd always been fair to his children, biological and step. He insisted any perceived favoritism towards Zach and Mia was just my imagination, and that he always made sure I had everything I needed. He even had the sheer audacity to claim he respected my decision to live with Aunt Sarah, as if I'd had any genuine choice in the matter. I was utterly overwhelmed, unsure how to react. Alex suggested a social media detox, but the damage was already done. People eagerly shared Vivian's post, adding their own anecdotes about what a difficult child I'd been. Old classmates chimed in, recalling how I was moody or antisocial, conveniently forgetting I was coping with my mother's death and abuse at home. Former neighbors spoke of seeing Vivian trying to include me, omitting the times I was visibly left behind during family trips. Then, 3 days ago, a cease and desist letter arrived from a lawyer representing Vivian and Dad. It claimed my Reddit post was defamatory, demanding I delete it and issue a public apology, threatening a lawsuit for damages if I failed to comply. I was terrified. I couldn't afford a prolonged legal battle, especially with wedding expenses looming. I called Aunt Sarah in tears, completely lost. She immediately came over, helped me regain composure, then called her friend Lisa, 50, a lawyer specializing in defamation. Lisa reviewed the letter and my original post. She assured me truth is an absolute defense against defamation and noted I hadn't named anyone, making their case difficult. With Lisa's guidance, we drafted a forceful response. We affirmed I stood by every word in my post and was prepared if they pursued legal action to present evidence of the abuse, including testimonies from teachers and neighbors who'd witnessed it. Yesterday, another bombshell: my cousin Jake, 25, Dad's nephew, reached out. We'd been close before Vivian. Jake confirmed he'd seen Vivian's post and knew it was a fabrication. He revealed he'd once caught Vivian badmouthing me to other relatives at a reunion when we were teenagers. He'd always felt guilty for not speaking up and now wanted to help. Jake recalled a family reunion when I was 15. Vivian had told everyone I was too busy with a school project to attend, but in reality, I hadn't even been invited. Jake overheard Vivian telling aunts I was a problem child tearing the family apart with attention-seeking behavior. Jake offered to make a public post corroborating my story, stating he'd witnessed Vivian's mistreatment firsthand and was ready to go on record. I was touched by his support, but worried about the backlash he might face. As of now, I'm waiting for Vivian and Dad's response to my lawyer's letter. Alex and I have decided to postpone wedding decisions until the storm passes. We're considering a small destination wedding with just our closest friends and truly supportive family. I'm still processing everything. The public shaming and threats have been overwhelming, but I'm striving to stay strong, Aunt Sarah. Alex and his family have been incredible, constantly reminding me I'm not alone. I'll provide another update once I have more news. Thank you all for your advice and support. It means more than you know. Second update, it's been a tumultuous month since my last post, and so much has shifted. I'm still trying to fully grasp it all. But here are the latest developments. First, the good news, Vivian and Dad backed down after receiving our lawyer's robust response. Lisa believes they realized their case was weak and their legal threats were pure bluff. They've gone completely silent on social media, and the wave of public shaming has largely subsided. Jake did make his public post supporting me. He bravely detailed specific instances of Vivian's mistreatment that he'd witnessed, including overhearing her persuading Dad not to pay for my school trip, while she simultaneously planned an expensive vacation for Zach and Mia. His post caused a significant ripple through the family, prompting several relatives to reach out and apologize for not recognizing what was happening when I was younger. Jake's post also included a story from when I was 16, a family Christmas party at my grandparents' house. Vivian had told everyone I couldn't come because I was sick. In reality, she'd never even informed me about the party. Jake had stopped by our house to drop off a present for me, only to find me alone, perfectly healthy. When he asked why I wasn't at the party, I broke down and told him everything. He carried that guilt for years for not speaking up sooner. Then, for the truly unexpected turn of events, about 2 weeks ago, I received a message from Mia, my stepsister. She asked if we could meet in person. After careful consideration with Alex and Aunt Sarah, I agreed to meet her at a public cafe. When I saw Mia, I barely recognized her. The confident, sneering girl I remembered now looked small and profoundly nervous. The moment we sat down, she burst into tears, apologizing profusely. Between sobs, she unveiled a story that utterly shocked me. Apparently, Vivian had been manipulating all of us for years. She told Mia and Zach that I hated them and was actively trying to turn Dad against them, convincing them the only way to protect their place in the family was to push me out. Mia confessed she'd always felt immense guilt over how they treated me, but Vivian would punish her severely if she showed me any kindness. Mia revealed Vivian had a history of this manipulative behavior, having done something similar with their father's children from a previous marriage, which explained why they had no contact with their older half-siblings. Mia had recently reconnected with her half-sister and learned the truth about their shared history with Vivian. She recounted incidents I'd forgotten or never even knew about, like when I was 14 and won a school art competition. Mia had wanted to congratulate me, but Vivian told her I was gloating and trying to make Mia feel bad about her own artistic shortcomings, or the time Mia found my destroyed mementos from Mom in the trash, and Vivian had convinced her I'd done it myself in a fit of rage. I was stunned. While this didn't excuse Mia's past behavior, it certainly explained a great deal. She shared that she's been in therapy for the past year, processing the emotional abuse she suffered at Vivian's hands. She didn't expect forgiveness, but desperately wanted me to know the truth. As for Zach and Dad, Mia believes they're still firmly under Vivian's influence. Zach adamantly refuses to believe anything negative about his mother, and Dad, Mia thinks, is simply too terrified of being alone to ever stand up to Vivian. This conversation with Mia left me with a torrent of mixed emotions. On one hand, I'm furious it took her this long to reach out. On the other, I understand the immense courage it must have taken for her to break away from Vivian's control and face me. Alex and I have decided to proceed with our original wedding plans. Vivian, Zach, and Dad are not invited. However, we've left the door open for Mia to attend, provided she continues to demonstrate genuine remorse and a sincere desire to make amends. Aunt Sarah remains my rock through all of this. She will be walking me down the aisle, and we've planned a deeply special tribute to my mom during the ceremony. A locket with Mom's picture in my bouquet, and her favorite flowers as centerpieces. Regarding Dad, I've finally accepted I can't keep hoping he'll change. His actions have clearly shown where his priorities lie, and I need to come to terms with that and move on. It's painful, but I'm now focusing solely on the family. I've chosen Alex, his parents, Aunt Sarah, and the friends who stood by me. The wedding is in 3 months, and for the very first time, I'm genuinely excited about it. Without any reservations. I feel like I'm finally closing a painful chapter of my life and wholeheartedly beginning anew. One with people who truly love and support me. Third update. Hello everyone, it's been 6 months since my last post. And as promised, I'm here to share how everything culminated. The wedding was absolutely breathtaking. We held a small, intimate ceremony in a picturesque garden, surrounded by our closest friends and family, and Sarah, my beautiful rock, walked me down the aisle. There wasn't a dry eye during our heartfelt tribute to my mom. We had a photo of her on a special chair in the front row, adorned with her favorite flowers. It truly felt like her presence was there with us. Mia did attend the wedding. In the months leading up to it, she consistently demonstrated genuine remorse and actively worked to make amends, even helping with some wedding preparations. While we're not best friends, we're steadily building a positive relationship. On the wedding day, she presented me with a touching card and a locket that had belonged to her grandmother, a poignant gesture to replace the one I'd lost years ago. The day wasn't entirely without drama, though. About an hour before the ceremony, a guest spotted Dad lurking near the venue. Apparently, a loose-lipped relative had given him the details. Thankfully, Alex's brother swiftly and discreetly escorted him away before I even knew he was there. They told me about it after the reception, and I'm incredibly grateful they handled it without disrupting our special day. As for Vivian and Zach, we haven't heard a single word from them since their legal threats fizzled out. From what Mia has shared, Vivian is absolutely furious that Mia attended the wedding and has been actively trying to turn the rest of the family against her. On a much happier note, Cousin Jake and I have grown quite close. He's been a wonderful source of support, and it's truly lovely to have a positive male family figure back in my life. He and his girlfriend have become good friends with Alex and me, and we often double date. Jake has also been instrumental in helping me reconnect with other family members who were kept at bay by Vivian's lies. Alex and I are settling wonderfully into married life. We've bought a charming small house in a new city, far removed from all the old drama. I started a new job I absolutely love, and Alex has been promoted at his company. We're discussing starting our own family in a couple of years, and I'm incredibly excited about the opportunity to create the loving home I didn't have growing up. Looking back on everything that's happened, I can hardly believe how much has changed in just a year. While a part of me remains sad that I don't have the relationship with Dad I always wanted, I found a deep sense of peace with it. I've realized that family isn't just defined by blood. It's about the people who love and support you unconditionally. Aunt Sarah continues to be an enormous part of our lives. She's truly like a mother to me, and Alex adores her, too. We have dinner with her every Sunday, continuing a cherished tradition she started when I first came to live with her as a teenager. As for Mia, we're taking our time. We meet for coffee once a month, slowly getting to know each other as adults, free from Vivian's toxic influence. It's not always easy, but I believe we're both committed to making it work. Thank you all immensely for your unwavering support throughout this challenging journey. Your insightful advice and kind words truly empowered me during some of the toughest moments. I'm closing this painful chapter of my life now, with a heart overflowing with gratitude and boundless hope for the future.